thank you very much for joining us. But let's jump right in. Please tell us about yourself. Who are you, and why are you on this call with us? And what's your experience been in New York dealing with the COVID pandemic?
Well, first and most important, I am Matt's stepsister. I am out here. I actually was on a contract in Florida. Brought me out here is I happened to wake up one morning and I looked on the television and they were showing an emergency department just overflowing with these sick people. And I had been so busy myself, I really didn't even know what was going on in the world. Long story short, I'm now working in that emergency room that I saw that Sunday morning with the makeshift morgue in the back and the whole 9 yards. But when I did see that on television, it was just this feeling of people saying, you know what, why'd you do it? Like, how did you go about doing something that you'd be risking your health and this and that? But so I've been an emergency room nurse for 13 years now. And that's just how I felt. It's like, well, geez, I've been almost training for something like this, which I was hoping would never come. But like, I've been in training to take care of people for 13 years that need my help. And I guess it would be saying, you know, like a soldier, like if they're like, okay, well, the war's here. And the soldier would say, oh, well, I did enough training, but I'm just going to sit this one out. Like, I didn't want to sit this one out. I felt just this urge to get out here. And my 21 days was finished 2 days ago. And I think in between, I probably had about 5 days off. But I was still on call. And 2 of them, I had to do orientation at another hospital. Being in a situation like this, where this hotel is shut down, I mean, there's no bar, there's no food, there's nothing. It's just the barracks. So you have your room, everyone has a private room. You sleep in your room, and they have a bus schedule downstairs. You got to figure out that. And then you get on your bus at 6 a.m. You got to be on your bus at 6 a.m. They get you to the hospital by 6:35 a.m. And then I know we'll probably end up talking about PPE at some point. I'm lucky at the hospital I'm at because it is the most famous of all. It seems like they've got a lot of, contributions and donations as far as PPE. So I'm lucky. Every morning I stand in line for my PPE. I get a new N95 every day, which is very unusual. There's only 1 or 2 hospitals that do that out here. I have to be reported into the ER at 7. Now, mind you, it's like once I go in the hospital, you have to have your mask on already in the hospital. And then once you go in the ER, you have your full protection on. I have an N95, then I have a surgical mask over it. I have either a visor or I have these big goggles. I have a hair tie thing that ties it back. And then I have a surgical cap on top of it. And then I have booties on my feet. And then I have I always explain it like if you saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, when the Oompa Loompas come out and those white like jumpsuit looking things, you might not remember that, but I do. Yeah. And that's exactly what it looks like. These big white, like painter zip ups. Some of us have those, some of us don't, because they're sold out nationwide. No one can get them anymore. If you don't have that, they give us this big plastic wear. And you're in that all day long. And there's no water. Like it's like
are you changing at all, or are you wearing that get up all
day? It's all COVID. 100% COVID. So you don't have to don and doff like they teach you in the rooms, because of the way the city hospitals are set up. They're just like big bunk rooms. So there's no negative flow room. So you are garbed all the way up until you leave. And that's why you see people's noses getting torn up. Like I had to switch to the duckbill. I don't know, the blue mask that has they tear your face up. Like, I mean, the first week it was brutal. Like I had like dents in my eyes, and I kind of have figured out the system a little bit. But yeah, you act as if the whole emergency department or your unit, you put your stuff on and you do not take that off until you leave for the day or when you go to lunch. But that's a problem too, because the whole hospital is considered COVID. Then you go outside and you have your mask. It's like, when can you eat or drink? I got very dehydrated initially, but you figure it out. The point why we're talking today is so when I walk in the hospital, we all get a free breakfast from whoever is donating that morning. And it's a little boxed thing. But again, like, where do you eat that? But we get a nice little boxed breakfast. It's usually like a little fritter or croissant or whatever with a piece of fruit, drink. And then at lunchtime, usually, area business or something will bring some pizzas into that break room, which I still have a hard time eating in. So I'll kind of scoot outside and like grab something and just walk around the neighborhood and eat. And then at dinner every night we have a to-go meal, and we get on the bus, and I'll eat on the bus. I don't mind on the bus. I'll even take my mask off on our bus. So that goes along with the rest of my day. So, I finish my shift. The bus waits for us at 7:30. We leave. We get back to the hotel by 8:15, and I'm back in bed by 9 o'clock to start it over again.
Let's go back to the beginning. It sounds like you came in right around peak or just after peak. Like, what was it like on day one when you went to Elmhurst compared to now? Kind of like give us the worst of what you saw, and how it's kind of progressed and what you're seeing today.
So I told you I did sit in this hotel for like 4 or 5 days, and that was the big peak. And I guess luckily or not, I did somewhat miss that. But I have firsthand accounts of what went on. People were coming in with shortness of breath, couldn't breathe. There wasn't enough oxygen stations, which makes sense. This is a 50-bed ER when you have 100 people come in with shortness of breath. So they did the best they could. They set up chairs like all around the different oxygen stations and had people sharing, nasal cannulas. And they set the people that were very, critically ill up, stretchers against the wall. And from there, they started having to put people on, the different breathing devices, whether it was a CPAP, a BiPAP, or high flow nasal cannula. And then lastly, onto vents, onto being intubated.
So for people that don't understand the medical piece, where you're saying the ERs are much quieter, that doesn't mean there's not COVID patients. It just means the COVID patients have moved out of the ER. So what you're seeing is very positive in that there's not a lot of new hospitalizations coming in. So that is really what's slowed. But are people getting out of the hospitals, or are people just moving around and now they're sitting in vents on floor 2 through 6?
Well, there's a mixture of things happening. So the ER, that's the best news, is that the ER is slowing down with COVID-19. There, of course, we're still getting some cases in, because let's face it, there's a huge population out there with COVID right now. But most of us should be able to tolerate it. Some of us will lose our sense of smell and never even know we had it, like a friend of mine. So the ERs are not being hammered with critically ill patients. We're getting almost some normal cases that are not COVID. Like I had a gallstone patient the other day, and I thought, oh, good, like something beyond COVID. Like, so we're not being inundated with COVID patients. Yes, some shortness of breath. Some of it's just anxiety, whatever. And so then so the natural flow is like, when we have a critically ill patient that we put on a vent or whatever, we send it up to ICU. If we have someone that's on the CPAP that's doing kind of well, it might go to what we call a medical surgical floor. So that's how you divide the hospital. ICU is going to be like people that are critically ill that have a very good chance of dying. The med-surg floor is more like people that we just have to kind of watch, and they could go down or they could go up with this disease, with COVID, with this virus. So, so the whole hospital turned into almost an ICU at one point. Like everyone was critically ill with this. So right now that's kind of changed, where we're back to, it seems like we do have ICU people, and now we do have your typical medical surgical people, ones that might have to end up in ICU or might go home. And that was very, very chaotic up there. Even when the ER started slowing, that did. Now I hear that that's starting to slow up there, where it's almost a division again of like true medical surgical patients and true ICU patients.
You obviously know a little bit about the program we're running here in Austin to raise money, to support our local restaurants, and to bring meals to our healthcare heroes. You're a hero, by the way. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
What does that food mean to you? And obviously there's programs in New York that are doing an amazing job and servicing you guys. You know, the volume of people to service in New York is in order of magnitude bigger than we're dealing with here in Austin. But I wanted to get some, real feedback from someone who was in the trenches. Like, what did that food mean to you during the day? And if you didn't have that food being delivered to you, what would you do to eat?
Oh my God, the food is so huge. I'm dead serious right now. Like, nurses are hungry people. We are hungry people. We're really hungry people. Like, if you leave something in a break room, don't ever expect it to be there when you get back, because we will all attack it. because we are just so busy that when there's just like something that you don't have to like call Uber Eats for, or you have to go to the refrigerator and pull out, or you have to pre-plan and bring with you. It's so huge. Everyone always has appreciated it, even before, you know, COVID came around. It's always so great when we are blessed with someone that brings some free food in. And let's face it, free is even better. Like, wow. I mean, there's some of these nurses that I'm working with at Elmhurst. I mean, like I said, I don't know what they're making, but I know that some of them having to live in hotels right now because they've got young children and they don't want to possibly infect their own families, you know? So they're shelling out some money. And the fact that we walk in with like a little packaged meal. And again, I'm not really sure where everything is coming from, but it's all donations. And I know local, like what you're doing, the local, we don't have like one person frontiering the whole thing, but local pizza places will send it for lunch. And then when I get back to the hotel at night, there's a chef that's cooking these little mini meals for us. And it is huge because, I mean, for us, I don't even have anything to, you know, cook anything in, or so to have a little packaged meal is great. The nurses are getting all the glory, but like the fact that we're trying to keep some businesses alive here. I mean, it's not just the nurses that should get the glory. Like these people that are, you know, cooking in these restaurants and delivering the food, that we're trying to keep their businesses alive. The people that are behind the teller, the people that are, you know, there's so many other people that are helping the nurses do what the nurses do, you know, that they need recognition and they need to stay alive too.
I think I told you before, we've onboarded 30 local restaurants into our program so far. And that was one of the missions that we started off trying to do, is save local Austin restaurants.
Right.
So we've been doing a big fundraising push, and we've been able to get 30 into our system. And, you know, we're doing 50 meals at a time. So we're spending, you know, $500 to $800 a pop at these restaurants, which hopefully is allowing them to hire one worker back. So if, you know, each of our meals allows one of these restaurants to hire back, you know, one more person, then, you know, we did our job. And it's a drop in the bucket across, you know, so far we have about 200 donors. You know, it sounds like a huge number, but in the grand scheme of the economy, you know, there's billions of dollars that is not flowing through these restaurants, and tens of thousands of restaurants, if not hundreds of thousands of restaurants, will not survive no matter what we do. So
it's a
trying
shame.
to do what we can.
It's a shame.
So let's talk about flattening the curve and social distancing. Give us some of your thoughts.
Well, I spoke with one of our ER doctors that I think I've referenced maybe once or twice here. She was interviewed by the New York Times. I did speak with her in depth. Like, she spent like a good 30 minutes with me. I had a lot of questions, and she phrased it this way, and I guess I never really thought about it this way. Like, we all need to get it. There's two things that have to happen here, is what she says, and I kind of go along with it. Like, we all need to be exposed to it, unfortunately, because we have to develop the immunity to it, which in turn will hopefully develop a vaccine for it. But we just can't overwhelm our healthcare system again, and we have to be, you know, diligent of how we do it. I think it's time to start taking some baby steps forward and getting out of the house. I don't like to see that word recession scares me. I don't like to see people being depressed in their house and, you know, maybe becoming, you know, anxious and depressed. I've seen a few stories about, you know, suicide rates and things like that. So I think I myself am feeling like it's time to not, you know, jump into it, but let's move on and start figuring out how we're all going to start getting out again.
Yeah, I mean, as we were talking about when we were prepping for this, I really like watching Cuomo's press briefings and the way he's describing it as, you know, it's time to open up the valve a little bit, watch my 4 measures, and in 2 weeks, we see what happens to those 4 measures, and that will be the control room that he wants to do on a local and statewide basis. And if things go well over a 2-week period, then we open the dial a little bit more.
Right.
But he's not talking about opening the dial for another 2 weeks. So, I mean, while everyone's talking about reopening, he doesn't want to do any changes until May either 14th or 15th. So
well,
he's given New York another 2 weeks before he's loosening the restrictions at all. having been in the trenches in, probably the biggest hotspot in definitely the U.S., it's probably rivaling the world at this point. What would you say to the Austin community and the ATX Hospital Meals program?
Well, it's funny because I did that video. I know that I sent it to you on my Facebook, like the fourth day that I was here, and I started crying. I never like cry like that, so that was a little weird. But I'm in a different spot now because I've been here for a while and things have got better, thank God. But I can tell you with 100% certainty that what happened at Elmhurst was real. People were dying quickly. They were dying without their loved ones next to them, and they still are because no family members are allowed in the hospital. And that's the hardest part for me. It's very, very sad. They go around with the iPads now, and they let, the family members get to say goodbye, although these people they're pretty much almost sedated without any sedation. So you hear about the body bags, you hear about bodies being piled up, trying to keep it away from, sight. You hear about young nurses that are thrown in there and traumatized, and it's all true. I mean, it happened. It's not happening right now. It was a brief period of time. It happened. The PPE was a huge problem for our staff here. It was huge. They were being forced to work in these places with the N95s for a week. I wear mine for a shift, and I literally am disgusted by it at the end. It's very, very hard to be suffocated for 13 hours in your face. You can't even imagine. I mean, people are like, I can't stand wearing a mask to the grocery store. Well, imagine, never mind that mask, because that's a fake mask to me. The N95 is a suction, and then you've got another mask on top of your face. What I would tell people is everyone has been very, it seems, diligent about staying home and doing the right thing. We're now at the point where we're starting to go a little bit stir crazy. And I think that we're going to be given a little bit of a short leash, a bit of a leash here. Just take what is given to you and, follow the directions of what is being told and what is being governed by your state. Because we don't want our healthcare systems to be overrun again the way they were in New York City. I'm seeing things slowly change for the better. And I think it is because we've all done what we're supposed to do. So I think if we continue on this path, I will be back in Florida, hopefully next week. And we can hopefully, start and move back towards normal life again. We'll just plug along here and hope for the best. And, if anything, I think it's brought a lot of people together. I think that the nurse's voice is going to be heard a little bit louder and stronger. And that's it. That's all I got for you, Matt.
Well, stay safe and get home to your family very soon. And we'll end the video here. So thank you very much from ATX Hospital Meals. And it was great chatting with you.
New York City.